The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
Welcome to the Best Birth Podcast. Today, Jen and I are sharing all of the lessons that we have learned by interviewing our experts in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Sarah, what is one of the lessons you feel like you've learned through this podcast?
It was amazing to me that most of the experts talked about these basic things. They talked about exercise, they talked about nutrition, and they talked about sleep. And obviously we know these things are good for our bodies, but in pregnancy, it was amazing to me that every single expert would mention the importance of fruits and vegetables and protein, eating your protein. They talked about water. They talked about developing sleep schedules so that you are able to get at least 4 hours of consecutive sleep each night that you have your newborn. It made me want to really look into my own health and wellness and focus on those three elements.
That is so true. I love the fact that we're not always learning something new. We're just being reminded. And when we come back to those basics, we really will find success. And that makes it easier to figure out what we're supposed to be doing, because you just start with the basics and then you build from there. So that's a great lesson.
Jen, what was the number one thing you learned in this podcast?
Oh, that was really hard to think about, because I came at this podcast with not a lot of birth education, and all of these experts, including Sarah, have had a lot more birth education. But I really just learned that with each subsequent child, you're not starting over, you're starting from experience, and you can just move forward with the knowledge that you get, and you don't need to shame yourself for what you didn't know, or you just did your best at the time. I know I said that throughout all of the episodes, that we aren't here to beat each other up for what we didn't know. And with each child, we can just move forward, and there are resources and things out there that I didn't even know about, and they're attainable and there for us when we need them and realize that we need them.
I think that recognizing the journey that we undergo as we have each pregnancy or each child, it's not like stair-stepping or climbing a ladder that you get to this pivotal moment. But there are times when you feel like you're taking a step backwards, or events in a birth that would make you think, wow, like I feel like a newbie, like I've never done this, or maybe my birth team has never done this. And guess what? Maybe they have never done what happened in your specific birth. And as we are advertising and trying to help you achieve the best birth, it's going to be for that very specific baby. And more of it has to do with how your heart and your mind are prepared and willing to accept the twists and turns that will come along with your birth.
And each time you learn something new, or maybe you learn something that you've learned before, but now you're learning it in a new situation, a new birth, a new child. So it can be adapted. What was another lesson you feel like you learned through this podcast?
I learned that it is important to have support and a birth team, a rock star birth team, people that you trust, whether you're hiring a photographer, getting a doula, having your mom in the room. All of those things should be very intentional and not just have it be happenstance that someone is there attending, and recognizing that your birth team has a lot of effect on the outcome of your birth and how you're supported emotionally.
And we met so many people that were part of these birth teams, instrumental in helping these babies come to the earth. And how lucky we are that we don't have to do it alone, that there are a lot of people around us wanting to help us have the best birth, and that they have the knowledge and resources available to do that.
Absolutely. All right, Jen, what was your second lesson that you learned in this podcast?
I have learned that our bodies were made to do this. They were made to birth. And a lot of times it's just catching our brains up to that point where we know too that we can do this. We are building confidence, we're building knowledge, we're building those tools, affirmations, whatever it takes to help us bring this baby to the earth. And as we learn these tools, adapting and changing, I learned a lot about chiropractors and how just shifting the pelvis can help instrumentally bring the baby here, and all of the adjacent related birth support team people, such as pelvic floor therapists and even a pediatric dentist to help with fixing the tongue tie for latching. So all of those different things to help our mind and body align.
I love in episode 10 that Megan Heaton actually brings out her pelvis and shows us if it's in the right alignment, it will have this much space. And if it's twisted, all of a sudden there's not enough room for your baby's head to descend.
Well, let's end with our lesson 3. What was your lesson 3 learned?
My last lesson was to utilize the specialists that are out there. When we interviewed Brittany Fox and she talked all about replenishing your body postpartum, the nutritional needs that you may be lacking, it made me realize, even though I have been a birth worker for a few years, there's so much that I don't know. And we are hoping that this podcast has helped you to get to know some of these experts. They have free resources online. They have platforms. A lot of spaces will offer the resources that you need to create the best birth.
I love that. Like we said, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to support us as new moms and in all of the things that we do for birth.
Jen, what was your third lesson learned?
My third lesson learned was that we are not fragile in pregnancy. I learned a lot from Amber Brusicki that we are meant to build our muscles and to really prepare as if we're going to be running a marathon, because birth is a marathon, and if you're not training for it, then you can't expect to have the best outcome. But as we are focusing our nutrition and exercise before, during, and after pregnancy, that is how we can really take care of our bodies. We learned also from Dr. Betty DeLass that there's such thing as prehab, not even just waiting until after baby to get that health and support that you need to help your body work properly.
Amber Brusicki's episode is number 2, and she shares that she was teaching a group fitness class when she started to feel those contractions, and many people around her also noticed, hey, today might be the day. She taught at 10 a.m. and had her baby at 1 p.m.
Wow, these experts. And we had several experts that were about to have babies. We had Amanda, and she had her baby during this course of the season, and Sarah got to assist in the birth. And then we also had Forget Me Not, Mackenzie Mott. She is about to have a baby. So exciting. All these women experts that are living what they teach and able to practice these things as well as they're having a baby too.
We want to share with you some of our favorite quotes that our experts shared. And obviously every single episode had amazing takeaways. We have been richly fed and educated as we have been interviewing. And these are some of our favorite quotes from our podcast guests.
Preparing for the unexpected allows you to go there safely and labor. And this was by Sarah Felt in episode 6. And I really just loved her calm approach to birth. And I really just felt safe in her hands, that if she were to be my provider, she would take care of things, and she would have these steps in place to know where you were going and have the backup plans or the different birth plans in place so that you can feel like you're well taken care of regardless of what happens.
In episode 14, Ellie Morris, a health and wellness coach, she shared taking a few minutes each day to slow down, breathe, and ground yourself can have a significant impact on overall well-being.
And it's hard to find those little moments, but it's just a few moments that you have to do that will make a big change and result on your overall well-being. In episode 25, Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife says, "The way you handle yourself when you're not getting what you want determines the marriage." And I would add any event. It determines the birth. It determines the relationship. Whatever else is going on, the way that you act or react is what will affect it.
Her episode taught us so much about emotional maturity and learning to regulate yourself, learning how to communicate with others, to express your needs. Such a gem.
Kelly Dean from episode 9 says, "It takes longer to heal because you're sleep deprived. You just ran a marathon and nobody fed you while you were doing it, and now you are keeping this newborn alive by the juice of your boobs, and you are exhausted. So your nutrition really funnels into your breast milk and how you heal your body." So true. As we've been talking about nutrition and our bodies, all of those things will greatly influence our health.
Nicole Rankin's episode, our OBGYN, was so informative, and her perspective was mind-blowing, really. She said, there's a snapback nonsense of getting right back into things and to get your body back into working out and to get your pre-pregnancy body. She says, just stop all of that. Take some time, be kind, and give yourself space to connect with your baby.
That is such wise words. I can just sit in that and bringing that self-care back to ourselves so that we can show up better for our babies. Dr. Linebeck and says, it doesn't mean you're going to be on antidepressants forever. People say, I don't want to get on this because it's bad for my body and my baby, and I don't want to be on it forever. You can find ones that are not bad for your baby, and you don't have to be on it forever. You just need a life jacket. Imagine you're plopped into the ocean and you're drowning. What tools can we use to buoy you up and get you back to dry land? And that's one of them. Once you feel like you're in a place where your toes can touch the bottom, then you can take off the life jacket. And that was from episode 42.
That episode was very eye-opening to the amount of individuals who suffer from postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. She gives tangible resources and steps we can be taking each day to help get ourselves onto a track of health and wellness. In one quote we had, it's about 25% of all women who experience postpartum mental health illness. That makes it the highest obstetrical complication for women. It's higher than gestational diabetes, higher than anything else. That was Riva who shared that with us. And learning that it is the highest in all of your pregnancy problems, that was pretty amazing and made us realize that we really have to get a plan in place.
For sure. I am so grateful that we were able to have so many experts touch on postpartum depression and just postpartum as it looks like in general, what to expect, what's normal, what's maybe not normal, when you need support, and having those in place, as you said, before the baby even comes.
In episode 24, Dr. John Schmidt, a pediatrician, he shared, most pediatricians have been asked all of the questions, so there's not an offensive question out there. There's new things coming around all the time. If you can ask questions to people you trust, you will make good choices. And I wouldn't discount your gut. As a parent, you're given an instinct that your pediatrician doesn't have for your baby. I have experience as a pediatrician. I have knowledge on diseases and studies, but I don't have that gut instinct. If you're worried, you should reach out and discuss that. If it's not the answer you want and it persists, continue to talk about it. And I think that's just as valuable as showing up to your well childhood visits. Checking the weight and the development of your baby is just as important as building a relationship with your pediatrician. He had so much knowledge and walked us through everything that will happen right as our baby is born and then into the milestones of the first year. But I just really loved that he mentioned the relationship that we build with our provider. And if we have a deeper relationship, there will be a sense of understanding and support that might be missed if we don't build that relationship first.
And I love that validation that he gave, because we do have questions and sometimes we worry that, oh, we're asking too many or we're not asking the right ones. But it's true. As we have that relationship, we can feel comfortable asking about anything as it relates to our baby.
Well, this podcast has been life-changing.
Wow, for sure.
I think that the experts were so generous with their time, with their resources, sharing everything that they have built into their careers with us and with you as our listeners. We were going to share some of our favorite experts and which ones they were, but it's just too hard to pick. It simply is. So we just went with a few quotes, and we really can't narrow down what one was our favorite because there were just so many that shared a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And as you said, it's life-changing, not only our life, but our baby's life. And generationally, this education is so important. Each episode, we've been sharing our Mom Squad secrets, and we hope that each of you will learn to trust your own intuition and to build those secrets, those tips and tricks into your own mothering.
There have been so many resources that you can access to further build your knowledge. There's also products and services that you can reach out if it's a fit for you and if it's a need. Check out the show notes and be sure to check out those resources.
Thank you for joining us on the Best Birth Podcast. I'm Sarah Ziroll.
I'm Jen Banks. Thank you for joining us, and please share with any moms and dads that are expecting. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.